Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm John Tucker.
And I'm Amy Morris. Here are the stories we're following today. We begin with the latest on President Biden. The White House now pushing back on questions of whether the president might have Parkinson's disease. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter with those details.
Logs had surfaced showing that a neurologist specializing in Parkinson's disease had visited the White House on several occasions. White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre saying that the president is fine.
Has the president been treated for Parkinson's? No. Is he being treated for Parkinson's? No, he's not. Is he taking medication for Parkinson's? No.
Jean-Pierre says the president had a full neurological workup as part of his annual physical in February, and there were no signs of any problems. Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, thanks, Ed. And amid questions about his health, President Biden now getting an unexpected boost from progressives in Congress, the same members he once battled. As more Democrats call upon Biden to withdraw from the race for the White House, members like New York's Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and Minnesota's Ilhan Omar are signaling that Biden should stay at the top of the ticket. Congresswoman Powell, a progressive Democrat from Washington, said she's standing behind the party and the president.
At the end of the day, he is our nominee right now until he's not our nominee, and I think we shouldn't do Trump and Republicans' dirty work for them.
Congresswoman Powell. This is notable considering these are the same progressive members of Congress who publicly criticized Biden for negotiating with Republicans while abandoning some of his more lofty campaign promises. And in the Senate, the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, also backed the president, saying, quote, "I'm for Joe."
And as questions surround the president's health, NATO leaders are converging on Washington for their annual summit. Bloomberg's Nancy Lyons reports from the nation's capital.
President Biden is hosting the event that marks the 75th anniversary of the alliance. White House National Security Advisor John Kirby says the leaders are expected to share their thoughts on Ukraine's future.
Some discussion about Ukraine's path to NATO and what that can look like, and a reaffirmation of what the president has long said, that NATO is in Ukraine's future.
Kirby says President Biden has helped strengthen NATO with 2 new members since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Finland and Sweden, bringing the total to 32. In Washington, Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, thanks, Nancy. Donald Trump is getting back on the campaign trail. He's rallying voters at his flagship golf resort in the Miami suburb of Doral. Meanwhile, Trump has yet to make a final decision on his vice presidential pick. However, he tells Fox's Sean Hannity he believes he'll make an announcement in the coming week.
I haven't made final decision, but I have some ideas as to where we're going. And a little bit, we wanted to see what they're doing. To be honest, I think probably within the next week and a half, probably sometime. I'd love to do it during the convention. My people say that's a little complicated.
Donald Trump speaking on Fox. The Republican National Convention begins July 15th in Milwaukee.
Let's turn to the markets now. Futures are higher after yet another record-setting day on Wall Street. The S&P 500 registered its 35th high of the year. Still, Morgan Stanley's Mike Wilson says traders should brace for a pullback.
The chance of a 10% correction is highly likely sometime between now and the election, not just because of the election, but because uncertainty is going to prevail for a lot of different reasons. Earnings reasons, election outcome reasons, tariffs potentially, immigration, Fed policy still remains uncertain.
Morgan Stanley's Mike Wilson places the odds of stock prices closing the year higher than they are now at 20 to 25%.
And today, attention turns to Jay Powell. The Fed chair delivers testimony to Congress. Let's get a preview now from Bloomberg's Michael McKee.
It's not really a question of what will he say, but what can he say? Mr. Market wants to know when the Fed will start cutting rates. Neither the chairman or his Fed colleagues know. The Consumer Price Index, which might offer a clue, isn't out until Thursday after his testimony. So expect Powell to repeat what he's already said. The Fed is committed to its 2% inflation target. It is also watching growth and unemployment, and policy is in a good place to help with any of those problems. You can also expect him to duck any questions about politics or fiscal policy. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Mike. The Sun Valley Conference kicks off today at the Sun Valley Resort in Idaho. We get a preview from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The annual event is hosted by boutique investment bank Allen & Company. It's also known as Summer Camp for Billionaires. Over the years, it's been a breeding ground for media deals as tech and media elites discuss the future of their industries. This year, politics will be very much on the agenda amid calls from some Democrats for President Biden to step aside. 3 governors being floated as potential replacements: Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer, Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, and Maryland's Wes Moore will be in attendance. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
And after 8 weeks of testimony, the jury in the fraud trial of Archegos Capital Management founder Bill Hwang is set to begin deliberations. Let's get more in this report from Bloomberg's Doug Krisner.
The case of Archegos Capital Management and its inability to meet billions of dollars in margin calls ensnared half of Wall Street, and it cost banks $10 billion. Hwang is charged with 11 counts, including fraud and market manipulation. Yesterday, in closing remarks, Hwang's lawyer said the government's case makes no sense because prosecutors failed to show how Hwang planned to realize a windfall from the alleged scheme. In his closing, the prosecutor peppered his arguments with metaphors to show how Hwang cared about moving stock prices, not acquiring stock. In New York, I'm Doug Krisner, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, thank you, Doug. And company news, shares of BP are down more than 3% in European trading. The oil giant is warning of, quote, significantly lower refining margins. It's also predicting a write-down on the value of a plant in Germany of $1 billion to $2 billion.
All right, thanks, Amy. And that brings us to 5:07 on Wall Street. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, John. Prosecutors in the federal corruption trial of New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez are expected to wrap up their closing arguments today in Manhattan, followed by the defense. After more than 7 weeks of testimony, federal prosecutors tried to persuade the jury that Menendez accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes. The prosecutor told the jury yesterday it wasn't enough for him to be one of the most powerful people in Washington. He also wanted to pile up riches for himself and his wife. Menendez has been charged with accepting gold bars, cash, a car, and mortgage payments in exchange for his help getting billions of dollars in military aid for Egypt. There's some good news about the Gateway rail tunnels between New York and New Jersey. Governors and senators took part in a signing ceremony yesterday in building the tunnels under the Hudson River that would upgrade the infrastructure between Penn Station and New Jersey. It involves a $6.8 billion federal grant approved last week that allows the Gateway Development Commission to start awarding construction contracts. New York Governor Kathy Hochul.
This is on the scale of the Erie Canal. That's the scale of what we're doing here.
New Jersey Senator Cory Booker.
In fact, $1 in our regional infrastructure bring back $4 of economic growth.
Audio courtesy of ABC7. The federal grant completes the $11 billion in federal funding to build the $16 billion Gateway Rail Tunnel. Construction is expected to begin by early fall. This morning, jury selection begins in the trial of Alec Baldwin. The actor is charged with felony involuntary manslaughter over a deadly movie set shooting in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson.
The key in jury selection is not to try and find people who have never heard of Alec Baldwin or have never heard about the tragedy on the Rust set. The key is to find jurors who can do their job, which is to look at the facts of the case and apply the rules to the facts.
Baldwin was holding the gun when it fired, but maintains his innocence, saying he did not pull the trigger. Global news 24 hours a day, and whenever you want it, with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg John.
Michael, thank you. It's now 5:10 on Wall Street, and that's time for the Bloomberg Sports Update. Good morning, John Stashower.
All right, good morning, John. Still 3 rounds to go at Wimbledon. Already this tournament has set a record for most 5-set matches, and 11 winners have come back from a 2-set deficit. It happened yesterday on center court. American Taylor Fritz rallied back to upset 4th-seeded Sasha Zverev. Fritz won 4-6, 6-7, 6-4, 7-6, 6-2.
I felt like I was still playing really well for being down 2 sets. So I was just thinking, like, it sucked to be playing this well and just losing 3 straight. So let's take the third. And then I was like, all right, I took it one at a time. And I had that belief, even though I lost the first 2 sets, I really felt like I was playing really good tennis.
So Fritz into the quarterfinals. He'll face Lorenzo Musetti tomorrow. He's one of 3 Italians still playing, and there are 2 Americans in the round of 8. First time since 2000. Fritz and Tommy Paul, who today has to face the defending champion Carlos Alcaraz with a loss by Danielle Collins. 1 American remains on the women's side. That's Emma Navarro. She's already beaten Naomi Osaka and Coco Gauff. And today in the quarters, Navarro takes on the French Open finalist Jasmine Paolini. Mets lost 8-2 in Pittsburgh. Christian Scott gave up just 1 hit, but the Pirates pulled away on the Mets bullpen. So a split of the 4-game series. The 2 Pittsburgh wins were by a combined 22-4. Yankees played tonight at Tampa Bay. Carlos Rodon could use a win. He was 9-2 with an ERA under 3. He's now lost his last 4. His ERA is up to 4.5. Former big league outfielder Raul Mondesi sentenced to 6 years in jail, convicted for embezzling $5 million while he was the mayor of a city in the Dominican Republic. Mondesi, the National League Rookie of the Year in 1994 with the Dodgers, later played for the Yankees. Keegan Bradley named to captain the U.S. Ryder Cup team next year at Bethpage Black on Long Island. He replaces Zach Johnson, whose U.S. team was routed last year in Rome. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. John and Amy.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Amy Morris. President Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, released a statement saying the president has not undergone any special neurological tests since his annual physical in February. This as world leaders in NATO are gathering in Washington, D.C. for their summit that begins today and lasts through Thursday. We're joined now by Bloomberg's Kevin Whitelaw with more about all of this. And Kevin, it's the White House visitor logs that raised some eyebrows, showing several visits from a neurologist from Walter Reed. What's going on there?
Well, I don't think we know, other than the denials from the White House spokesman and the doctor about any special consultations. I think the problem for Biden is obviously every one of these things is going to keep raising the questions about his health and about his age. And people really, I think, have lost trust with the way White Houses address these things. Most people remember the letters that Donald Trump's physician wrote when he was president, and no one really believed most of what was in there either. So I think for Joe Biden, the struggle is, how do you break out of a news cycle where every day, every moment, people are looking for signs of age, signs of declining health or mental ability, and every stumble, every slip is going to be magnified 1,000 times.
And this is playing out on the world stage as well. And this week, the world stage is in Biden's backyard. D.C. is hosting the NATO summit this week. World leaders gathering starting today. What are the optics there? I mean, are they even paying attention?
Well, I think everyone's going to be paying attention to Joe Biden in particular, and it's sort of hard to disappear into the woodwork when you're A, the president of the United States, and B, hosting the summit. And so he is going to be front and center. There's going to be some big moments, European leaders, a number of them saw him somewhat recently in France for the D-Day celebrations, and there was some concern about a handful of moments during that. So people are going to be watching this pretty closely to see if he's able to project strength and dynamism. He won't be the only one that people are watching, because there's a couple other European leaders that are also coming with somewhat damaged political standing, particularly France's Emmanuel Macron after an election there. But I think most of the eyes are actually going to be on Joe Biden.
Right. You're right about that. France and Germany facing leadership optics, rather concerned about some of their domestic issues that are going on. But at the same time, this meeting was designed to sort of show this world unity against Russian and Vladimir Putin aggression, and to send a warning to China. Will they be able to accomplish that?
They're certainly going to try. They were hoping to come out of the summit with a very strong, clear, specific pledge of aid to Ukraine, at least 40 billion euros. a year. That's not going to. It's going to be a slightly watered down version of that because procedurally and politically there were a handful of countries that weren't able to give a super firm commitment. So there's going to be a little bit of squiggliness around that one. But obviously, I think they are going to try to project all of that strength. But with the U.S. election looming and the possibility of Donald Trump being president next year, it's pretty hard for the United States in particular to make any promises to Ukraine beyond this calendar year.
Got about a minute here, Kevin. What would be considered a success out of this NATO meeting?
I think if they're able to make all of those pledges sound as firm as they can be and project strength, that's about all they can hope for. But most everyone's going to be able to read between the lines, and so I think for most people, it's really going to be a question of how is Joe Biden doing? Is he looking strong? Is he looking fit? And is anybody at all able to get through to him and change his mind about running for re-election?
You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, Sirius XM Channel 119, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Amy Morris.
And I'm John Tucker. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.